So since we were born in 1985, they had not beaten Affis until, well, I'm giving the story away. So in 2003, PSP is leading the Affis team. Chile Boy Rapila is leading the boys' high team. Also, we got no real chance of winning
What
this
a
thing.
thing.
Somehow, crazy. Somehow we win this thing 18-3, and I was the goal kicker with a 15 on my back, and we kicked six penalties to win the game 18-3. Like, an
Jeez.
unbelievable. No, it
Solo
was mad.
mission.
No, listen, yeah. And as an 18-year-old boy in Pretoria Boys, I'm sure my head was this big. Like the
Of
humility was
course.
not something
Of
no,
course.
no,
It's not your portion
I had
that
a
time.
big head. No,
You're the talk of the
I had a
town that
massive.
time.
Oh no, I had a massive ego. I thank God that there wasn't social media because then I think I would have lost my mind.
Hey guys, Courtnall Skosan here, and welcome to Skosan Unplugged.
I told her mom that I bust soon, soon. Knew as a child back in the womb. Oh, told her step back, I need my broom. Hop in the car.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Courtnall Skosan, and today I've got a very special guest with me. I'm so excited to introduce him to you guys. I've had the privilege, not only is he a great man, of course, but I've had the privilege of being coached by him in my time at the Lions. He's then gone on to the Bulls to do some amazing work there, and now coaching a star-studded team at the Sharks. Coach Joey Mongalo, ladies and gentlemen. Coach, thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited to get going in this conversation.
Courts, thanks for having me, and thank you for that humbling introduction. I'm actually thinking now on the top of my head when you mentioned that I coached you. It was such I don't want to give away stuff now, but I just thought it was such
No,
an
no,
interesting
please.
time in my coaching career because we had just finished winning the Lions, the Currie Cup under 19s for 2 years, 2016, 2017, myself, Neil de Bruin, Philip
Very
Lemmer.
successful time.
A good time. And then we came into senior rugby, and it was such an interesting transition because I learned quickly that as a coach in the junior system, you almost were the knowledge bearer. And you told the guys what to do, they bought in and they went and did it, and you succeeded. So the thing kept replicating itself. Where
Yeah.
what it took me a while to realize with you guys is that you guys have lived this thing, you've been in these experiences, and there has to be a little more knowledge sharing. So it's no longer just the coach coming to tell you what to do. You guys have got an opinion, a feeling of how I'm feeling on the game, and how do you gauge in that. So as you were saying that, my head was sort of going back to 2018 and saying, I'm so glad that somebody said, if you don't look back on your life and you don't get embarrassed almost at what you used to do, then you're not growing. So I'm sort of kind of embarrassed of the coach that I was back then.
No, no, no. It's amazing. It's been for me being just to add on that, for me being a seasoned rugby player as well. You gotta find yourself understanding that you don't know all and everything. You don't know enough. You can always learn. So it's kind of where how I see it as a seasoned player is it's a collaboration between the coach and the player. It's teamwork. It's working together. A lot of guys like just being told what to do, and other guys like to work with the coaches. And kind of use their style and what they've learned and implement all of that type of stuff with the coach. But coach, I want to start off, and I always do this. Whenever I sit with someone, we always ask, "How are you doing?" But do we really ask, "How are you doing?" So you just asked me now off air, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "No, I'm good, coach. I'm good." How are you, coach? How are you doing?
Brilliant, man. I think it's a great question. And I think to pause and look somebody in the eyes when you're asking that question shows a genuine desire to want to know. And how I try to do this, I try to split it up in how am I doing in different facets of my life because that helps me then rightly bring the answer across, So I would say
Yes.
on a relational marriage front, my wife and I, Zinzi, are in a very good space. So that's really good. And I think it's just consciously trying to invest in each other, making sure that we once a week get out to a coffee. So that's healthy. The girls, we've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Zenani is the 4-year-old and Ziana is a 6-year-old. They're in a good space. They love Durban and they're growing so much, they always come back. And the other day she was saying a frog is an amphibian. And I said, what? What is an amphibian? So, you know, so
They sharp
they
this
learn.
age, yo.
It's incredible, man. It's incredible. I literally said to the other one, I'm paying the school fees for you to go learn the stuff and come teach me
100%.
because they're next level. They are next level. So
100%.
they're in a good space.
Awesome.
Family-wise, extended family, my mother's still in Pretoria with my brother and my sister. I don't get to see them that often, but we speak enough over the phone, so that's healthy. Um, how do I say, professionally with the team. Obviously, as we're speaking now, the Sharks on a bit of a difficult time. We've won one game out of five, I think it is, and there's some talks about changing stuff within the coaching staff. So it's actually funny. I've got a lot of peace in my heart, and I think part of it is knowing the value that I bring to a team, and then also just the context of by faith, knowing that nothing will happen over my life that the Lord doesn't allow. You know, like one of my favorite scriptures says, "Not a sparrow falls out of the sky without God knowing about it or God purposing it." So if a sparrow who has not much value, God can know that and be that invested, how much more me, who's his son. So I've got a lot of peace in my heart about what the future looks like in that space. And then what else, Courtnall? Yeah, so I think I would say overall about a 7 out of 10 is the space I'm in.
No, that's awesome. Like, it's a nice way to look at it as well. Because as you're talking now, obviously, I'm reflecting as well in those areas of my life where I'm at, So it's a nice way to look at it. And I think a lot of the times, and this is why I do ask the question, how are you doing? And I intentionally keep quiet and sit back and just listen. Because sometimes people are just like, nah, I'm good. And how are you? And I'm like, you didn't give me anything, So I love the fact that, when we ask this question, it can be such a big conversation starter. Like now, if we had to sit somewhere and we had like 3 hours, I could be telling you my whole life story as well, and how things are going in my life and all of that kind of stuff. So that's amazing. But Coach, just to get into it, I want to, the main thing for this, and like I told you as well, is for people to get to know you better, but also the nuggets that you have and the stuff that you've picked up in your life, like you're a very wise man from what I know, but I want people to see that side, and I want people to get to know that side of you as well. But I want to start and go right back to the beginning, like I do, with every episode that I do, and, your upbringing. Tell me a little bit about that, where you grew up, what sports you played, early influences in your life, and you can be as elaborate as you want to be.
Yeah, yes, great point to start. And I love this because it also helps me go back to my formative years to realize what I was built on the back of. So I grew up in a informal settlement outside of Brits in the Northwest Province. The informal settlement is called Okasi. And that is what I was born in 1985. So that's the late 80s, early 90s, the memories that I have from being a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old are my earliest memories in that space. Grew up in a household with a very strict soccer-loving factory worker as a father. So he's a good man. Like he used to get paid every fortnight, so every second Friday get paid. And everyone says our house was the place to be because my mom wouldn't have to cook on a Friday, would whether fish and chips or some kind of a takeaway. No, that's good by once. It's like it's like I had more friends on a Friday than the rest of the week, huh?
Oh,
So
awesome.
it was, yeah, and I just feel like when I feel at those times, I feel like a joy, a sense of fulfillment. Like even though we were living in Black South African apartheid times, I never felt that. I felt like super secure in what I had at home. So there was always an abundance. My mother was a professional working nursing sister, working in the ICU department at Reef Med Hospital in Brits. I had an older brother, Pleasure. I have an older brother. He's 7 years older, and my sister Letabo is 5 years younger than me. So there's quite a bit of an age gap between us, but I'm feeling like as I'm speaking to you, just security and goodness and like a solid church going family on a Sunday, a sport loving family. My mother, my sister and I Chiefs fans, and my brother and my father Pirates fans. So on derby days there was like they sat on one couch, we sat on another couch. And I think I learned about competitiveness. I think it started at that thing, to have two people on two different sides, have banter, but when it's done, you're able to shake hands and say, okay, your team won or lost, whatever. But then Courtnall in 1992, the 28th of November, my life really changed because on that day it was still a derby day, Chiefs versus Pirates. My dad always used to watch those games in a local shebeen with his mates, but he decided to stay with us that particular day. It was funny, and when the game finished, he went off with his mates, just like we used to do. He'd normally knock on the door when he came home in the evening. And when he came back that night, there was a knock on the door, but it wasn't my dad. It was my dad's friends. And they said my dad had been shot. But my mother, being a nursing sister, was like, oh, no, don't worry. Let's go to the site. I'll get him to hospital, like really calm. But they said, no, you stay here with the kids. And they took my brother And the next thing, like about an hour later, we heard him just running back, Mama, Mama, they have shot and killed Papa. So in that moment, like our whole lives changed, man. Like it's went from this security that I explained to you to this household now that's just filled with hustle. So my mother went from now she's a single parent, she's got 3 kids to look after, and it felt like from that day onwards went from this cohesive unit that's going through everything together to still a cohesive unit, but every person has to do their own thing because my mother can't now give you 100%. So I almost want to say, like, from the age of 7, I got introduced to some form of high performance because from that age onwards, there was no second chance. You had to make whatever work. Your tuck shop money was your tuck shop money. Your school homework had to be done, and nobody was going to fetch your stuff, your project that you forgot. So I think I had to learn to become an adult from quite a young age. I've spoken a lot, Courtnall. Is there anything else
No, no,
specific?
please. No, like,
Okay.
so I want to go through your childhood so that people can understand how, you came up to obviously then become then getting into sport and going on into rugby and how all of that started as well. So that would be the follow-up question onto that, like obviously, or before we move on to that, like I lost my father as well, and I know how that has changed me, going obviously now the way I look at life, the way I try to, be a father and a husband as well, knowing that, life is short, and we don't know when our number's going to get called. How did that shape you? As you're saying now that you went to knowing that there's no second chance, but, how did that develop you as a man? Because now you needed an example, and that example left very early in your life. Who became those examples? Who did you look up to when it comes to a male figure?
Yeah, that's great, man. And the vacuum that's left by a father needs to be, it's going to be filled up by something. And that's why role models are so important. So in my life, there's a guy called Marius van Heerden. He was the head of sport at Courtnall Primary, which was the only English primary school in Britstown. All the other primary schools were Afrikaans. So he took this 10-year-old black boy who only knew how to play soccer and saw something in me and said, listen here, here's cricket, try this thing, here's rugby. And at the time, I remember my first ball in cricket, there were 2 nets at Courtnall Primary. I ran down the left-hand net and I bowled it over the right-hand net. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be. I'm like, no, I don't want this. Give me the soccer ball. And all he said was, no, don't worry. Maybe bowling is not for you. I'm going to make you a batsman and a wicket keeper. And it's amazing, like, when I'm looking back, how he really invested in me. Like, he would, even sometimes during PT, he'd have a bowling machine up, a PT, the lesson, PE. Then he would have me batting in the nets against the bowling machine. After school, might have taken me for throwdown. So I saw a man who invested in somebody because they saw something that I couldn't even see in myself. And I think that's probably what happens when you lose a father. A father's role might be to look at his son and say, my son, you are called to a lot more than you realize. So I have to take you this journey so that you can become the man that God has called you to be, or that you were created to be. So he was definitely one of those guys. And I mean, 2 years later, I went from being a 10-year-old who couldn't play rugby or cricket to playing provincial cricket for Northwest because of his, his intervention in my life. And that led me ultimately then to getting a bursary to go into Pretoria Boys High School. So I mentioned Marius, he was the original one, but there were so many, like fathers of friends of mine. There was, I remember Fani de Villiers, the old cricketer for South Africa. Because I played Northwest cricket, somebody in his family member was part of that. So he was also somebody like that in that space. When I went to Pretoria Boys High, there were a couple of gentlemen as well who I looked up to as father figures. I didn't realize that what I was doing, but I looked to their lives and said, well, these are men who are living honorable lives from what I can tell as a 12, 13, 14-year-old. Let me try live as what I see them living. So I would say that, Courtnall, there was definitely a vacuum left, but thankful that in my life, other men filled up those vacuums for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I can assume from what I know about you and what I see online as well, that that's similar to what you try and do. You try and emulate, or try and show, and kind of be an example for younger kids, especially obviously when you were coaching at junior level as well. I know that you were always, you go to some of the guys' weddings as well. I don't see a lot of I don't see a lot of that happening nowadays, where coaches are going to guys' weddings that they coached like 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, So, is that because of the examples that you had, that you feel, is it a sense of responsibility, or does it come natural to you?
Yeah, that's good. I don't want to claim it and say it comes naturally as if I'm better than anybody else. I think it's a natural outflow from a life that has seen people do that with me. Another gentleman is Ashley Everett. He found me just after school at the Bulls, and he gave me an opportunity to be a junior rugby player there. And Courtnall, he was so clear from the beginning. He said, "You will play rugby as long as your career will take you, but I'm telling you now, if the minute you stop studying, I'm not going to allow you to train here." So
Sure.
he taught me something that said, and I'm so thankful now because of him. I've always had something running alongside rugby. I've got a master's degree while I was coaching at the Bulls. I've got a consultancy business while I'm coaching at the Sharks. And I've normalized that. And why I'm saying that is because he made me that, I'm teaching the same thing to the players that I'm involved with. So I think it is a subconscious, natural overflow of what I've experienced. I want to share with them. And I think also the other part potentially is that my coaching philosophy is three things: is simplicity, clarity, and relationship. So I've always found a desire to get to know beyond the player. And as soon as I want to know somebody beyond the player, I've got to ask them how are they investing themselves outside of the game. So that has been a place where when you speak about going to someone's wedding, I think it's the sense that the guy feels that this guy was more than just a rugby coach. They wanted to
Yeah.
know, what do I look like away from the game?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's super satisfying to see guys on the other side when you see them getting
No,
married.
it's awesome. Like I love that because for me that's what the game is all about. And I remember at my time at the Lions, that was something that was instilled into us in that group, of players. And that's why we still, even though we don't see each other every day, we're still connected in some shape or form. We're still contacting and talking to each other. I mean, we work together. We're still contacting. Even if it's just a, hey coach, how you doing? Or hey coach, what's up? It's like the game is all about building relationships, and that's one way that you can test and see it is when there's stuff happening outside of the game. But coach, I wanna ask you as well. Your rugby then, because you were talking a lot about cricket now, and obviously you're very blessed in that. I saw the other day you were posting as well. You guys were playing some cricket. I don't know against who you guys were playing against the Dolphins, or was it? Yeah,
Dolphins,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
So
was against.
yeah, so I see you still enjoy the cricket, but then rugby obviously a big part of your life. Where did that start? And what is your fondest memories of rugby in the beginning days?
Yeah, that's good, Courtnall. And I know this is probably left field. I just felt it will be almost irresponsible of us to just run past that Lions time. So I would like to know from you as a player, because I know you're a guy who reflects and you think through stuff. Like, what would you say, like your top two or three things that you took away from that environment that made it so special for you that you are carrying through in your life? I'm interested to hear what you took away from that.
So one of the big things, and I always reference this, is the meeting the day I sat with Coach Johan in Swiss. They called me in. I went with my agent because they wanted to have a chat with me. We were still in between whether we're gonna do this, whether we're not gonna do this. Because at the time I was still studying at Tux, and I was like, you know what, things are not working at the Bulls. I might as well just go finish my degree, go back to Cape Town. Just call it a day. Because this rugby thing might not be for me. And I went in to see them, and they had been watching my games in Varsity Cup, and they're like, "Oh no, we see you fitting in," and all of that kind of stuff. And then Coach explained how God had showed him a vision and explained to him what it is that he's going to be doing at the Lions. And he said, God showed him clearly that he's going to take this place from a nobody team to a championship side in 3 years. But he needs guys that are committed and that can stay together. But the feeling that I got when we had that conversation in that room, I was convicted. I was like, listen, when we left that room, I was like, this is where I need to be. I told my agent, listen, you don't still, het gaan nie oor nommers en goed en alles nie. Get the papers, I'm signing, this is where I need to be. I signed before they won the promotion relegation game against EP Kings. I signed already. I was already on my way. I was fully convinced that this is the place that I needed to be. So that whole understanding of the leadership, for me, that was already the foundation. It's the same thing I looked in when I was looking for a wife. My wife had the foundation. Her father was a pastor. I was like, okay, foundation is there. Now let's see if the other stuff is there already. So
Sure.
that's one of the big things, is that, Coach, like the way Johan led was, spirit-filled. It was always listening to God's voice. And that was something that I needed, and that I was on that journey as well. So that was a big thing for me. The fact that we then had a camp and we all sat in a circle yeah, was almal in 'n kring gesit, and you had to stand up and say what your most embarrassing moment and one of the ethics, one of the toughest things you've ever faced. And the way guys stood up and got vulnerable and shared with each other. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that brought us as a team together, because we were a bunch of rejects coming from everywhere. We came together, and I believe that that level of connection outside and understanding someone's inner being, is what obviously, brought us closer. And then we worked extremely hard. Like was it baie hard gewerk. And for me, I've always been a firm believer in hard work always beats everything else. Like I've always been a believer that you can have talent, you can have everything, but hard work always beats everything. And that was rewarded. You were playing on merit. If you work hard and you do the thing, you get the reward. And that's what it wasn't. But this guy's been in the game for 6 years, 7 years, so he has to be there. It was like whoever's the best guys will go onto the field. That's why we had an environment where a Madouchtamwe can be 19 years old or 20 years old and come into the environment and score 4 tries against the Stormers, because it was so healthy with all the competition and the work that was put in, that anyone can step onto the field any given weekend and it would be the same product that goes out there. We had the same systems running from under 19 right through to the senior setup, so everyone understood the culture, everyone understood everything. And that's what, for me, like, if I had to isolate 3 things, I would say, like, those are 3 big things that, got us to, that was the foundation that was laid to get us to the others. There's a lot of other things. We had a purpose that was bigger than ourselves. We wanted to play for the pride of Johannesburg. We wanted to play to inspire. There's a lot of things that that we have, but if I had to isolate, those would be 3 big pillars that I think, was a big part of what it was.
Yes, Courtnall, like you don't understand how that excites me. Like literally, like with the work I do with my consulting company team IP3 is that it's watching people succeed and getting to the nitty gritties of why they succeeded, and then building that into a framework to help people then replicate success for themselves. So I love what you've said there. It feels like I'm taking over from you, but anyways, I heard was I just heard this thing
Please.
about vision and leadership as the starting point, vision and leadership, and then there was this massive sense of cohesion that happened amongst the players for that vulnerability. So there was connections there, and then lastly, there was that sense of competition amongst the players, and only the people you got rewarded for your efforts. So there's always competition, but it was healthy competition, which I remember, which is pretty cool, awesome. But thank you for sharing, man. I appreciate that.
Not a
I've got
problem.
still. I still remember your
Just
question.
before you answer
Yeah.
the question, goes like, just to talk about the healthy competition. You had Ruan Kombrink, you had Sylvian Mahuza, you had Anthony Forbank, you had Courtnall Skosan, you had Madouchtamwe. We all talk to each other till this day.
Wow,
This
man.
and we were in the same position. So that's
Yeah.
just to explain the type of environment that was there. It was everyone, we all played. We all had 50, 40, 60, 80 caps. We all had a bunch of caps. And it was in that 4 or 5 year span of us playing together. Everyone played.
Sure.
Everyone competed. And there was no toxicity. There was none of that. We all knew that we were working towards a common goal. So it was easy. It was easy. But yeah,
Brilliant, bro.
that's just
Nah, brilliant, brilliant. And again, I'm just gonna stamp on that and say where you started for me is the point of difference. Where there's clear vision and strong leadership, everything can flow. So I agree. I mean, I saw those men operate as well in the environment. We were looking up to them. One of my favorite stories, before I answer your question, is we were playing in the semi-final of the Under-19 Currie Cup against the Bulls away from home. And I phoned Johan Ackerman the morning of the thing to say, yes, Akis, I'm feeling flippin' like emotional about this thing. And he said to me, listen to me, don't do that. The worst thing that you need to do is add emotion to that change room. It's a semi-final, the boys will get them up. All they need to see from you is a relaxedness, like a confidence of we prepared for this thing. Courtnall, I can't tell you, we got a red card in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Sure.
And the guys still went on to win the game because halftime was a sense of, hey boys, you are at Loftus playing against a Bulls team that nobody expects you to win, but you guys are on the fight, so why not go do that for another 40 minutes? And they just went on and did it, but it's amazing how the wisdom that could have been gleaned from that man and applied that same day. So I've got so much respect for him as well as a man,
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you spoke about memories, that's definitely one of them. But I would go chronologically. I remember we got introduced to rugby only when I was in like standard 4. I think it's grade 6 now in this. Yeah. So we always played soccer. And like I said, we were the only English primary school in that place. So we played against Voorwaarts and Laerskool Brits. And I just been remembered playing fly half, and it just felt like I was just getting bullied the whole time. It just felt like I was tackling loose forwards, centers, and every time I was trying to run loose forwards or tackling tackling you. But
Yeah.
I kind of remember enjoying that painful feeling after the game. That sort of felt me like it, I don't know, it felt manly. It just felt like
Yeah.
I want to be involved in that. And then when I got to Pretoria Boys High School, a school of 1,500 boys, when they get together, like everyone's compulsory to go watch. So when I saw Pretoria Boys I play against Affis in 1999, we lost the match. I think the first one we lost, the second was a 19-all draw. And I looked at this and I thought, man, 5 years or 4 years from now, I'm 100% playing in this game. You can't convince me otherwise. I want to be that guy who runs out with a 10 on his back in front of all these people. Fast forward 5 years, Pretoria Boys High play against Affis. Boys High hasn't beaten Affis in 18 years. So since we were born in 1985, they had not beaten Affis until, well, I'm giving the story away. So in 2003, PSP is leading the Affis team. Chile Boy Ralapilla is leading the Boys High team. Also, we got no real chance of winning
What
this thing.
a-
Somehow, crazy. Somehow we win this thing 18-3, and I was the goal kicker with a 15 on my back, and we kicked 6 penalties to win the game 18-3. Like, an unbelievable. No, it
Solo
was
mission.
mad. No, listen, yeah. And as an 18-year-old boy in Pretoria Boys, I'm sure my head was this big. Like the
Of
humility was
course.
not something.
Of
No,
course.
no.
It's not proportion
I had
that
a
time.
big head. No,
Yo, you
I
talk
had
of the
I had a
town that
massive.
time.
Oh no, I had a massive ego. I thank God that there wasn't social media because then I think I would have lost my mind. So
Hey.
thankfully, it was only Pretoria News where it was written. God knew what He was doing, so that helped. Then I'll say this, Courtnall, being at the Bulls as a junior, I think for 5 years in that environment, I can count on one hand how many games we lost. So
Yeah,
that
it's a
is
winning
like I'm
culture.
taking that. No, no, no. It's unbelievable. And what I love about
100%.
it when I look back, it was winning by design.
Yeah.
Like from the recruitment to the match day flow to the everybody looked like all the junior teams looked and spoke like and acted like the senior team. And I remember some of the how the junior teams would train scrum strikes against or launches against the senior team. And I had a guy like JP Null and Etienne Buerta before he passed away, and Brian Abana. All these guys, you're doing moves against them. So when I'm driving home out of the gate, I'm thinking, did that just happen?
What?
Like, did I just spend
100%.
time learning? It was unbelievable. Hey, and the scary thing about it, Courtnall, is that if you repeat what those guys did 20 odd years ago, you'd still run an unbelievable system. And that's the one thing about high performance principles is that you can replicate them. I mean, that was an unbelievable
There's a
time.
recipe. There's a recipe. I
100%.
always have this conversation, and Howard and I mean, I don't know if you still chat to Howard a lot, but
Mm.
Howard and I chat quite
Coach,
often. And
Coach Howard.
Coach
Coach
Howard,
Howard.
yes, of course, Coach Howard. We chat a lot, and I told him, I said, dude, there's a recipe. I don't know why. You know, a lot. There's a recipe to success, and if you just follow the recipe, everything just follows. It's like it's A B C D E. It's literally that.
Yeah. Yeah, spot on. I like that. I'm going to start using that analogy of a recipe because it just makes sense to everyone. Whatever environment, and if you tell somebody this is how you bake a cake, put these 5 ingredients in, leave it in the thing for
100%.
half an hour, it's going to work out. It has to work out, right? And if it doesn't work out, Cardinal, you'll know where it went wrong. I put in a little bit too
Exactly.
much this. So you can always fix it. It's not like you're reinventing the wheel. I love it. I'm going to steal that thing if you don't mind. I'm going to use that in
Thank
my corporate
Fantasy, please.
events. The recipe, please. So another memory was, so that was the Bulls as a junior, starting to coach with the Lions as a junior and also part team manager, part defense coach was also a good memory. But the 2016 under 19 Curry Cup where we beat the province team, like honestly, we should have never beaten that team. But the last part of that game, we knew we were going to win. So myself and Neil de Bruin were in the box, and we actually had my phone and we were listening to worship music, like at the back end of the game because the game was won, and it was just such a cool time to in that moment, just the two of us give glory back to the giver of the glory that we were about to receive for winning that final. So that is something that sticks to my mind. And Neil and I, we still speak now, and something that we like saying, listen, we love that and we'll never forget that. So that happened nicely. And I think even the promotion to coaching you guys in Super Rugby and playing in that final against the Crusaders in Christchurch, even though we lost the game, it's just I grew up waking up at Pretoria Boys High, looking at Christchurch, watching the Crusaders, and then to be involved in that moment was quite big for me. What else was there? I'd say at the Bulls, just again, going back there as a coach, having been there as a player and winning as much as we did there was quite a highlight.
Organized it
And then
so
most
so well.
recent, no, No, was special. I mean, and even Jake, like what a leader, you know. And what I loved about him is you didn't have to wonder what was his guiding principle. The guy just wants to win. Like
It was
it's
clear. It
unbelievable.
was
Like
very clear.
no, no,
Win at all cost.
100. 100%. And I love that. Like I love somebody who you know what they stand for because you know what they're gonna like and not like because you know what's their driving principle. And I learned so much from him in that period of time. And then recently with the Sharks, I would say winning the Challenge Cup, whatever, a season or two ago. It
That
was just
was
beautiful, you know,
powerful.
like
It was so nice to watch. Oh my goodness. And you guys wait on it. Ah, it was just good. It was so good.
no, it was, man. And also to sit back and have this privilege of working with Springboks and watching the stuff that you guys have prepped together, like you said, in collaboration, working is such a beautiful thing to observe. And I think that as a coach is something that you want to keep replicating, joining with people, collaborating around a plan and watching that plan play out in front of many people.
Yeah. No, that's awesome,
Yeah.
Coach. And then before we go on, because I want to dig into like why specifically defense and why specifically that, you know, like why is it a specific personality thing? Is it, you know, and what it means to you? But before we get that, how do you find, you know, your identity off the field? Because I know you're quite big, you know, on like we're talking a lot about the sport and the principles of the sport and how to win and how to build success. But how do you find your identity off the field?
Yeah, that's very good. Courtnall, I'll say identity of the field. It's almost similar to how I said when you said, "How am I doing?" There's definitely a personal front. So who I am in front of my wife as a husband, in front of my kids as a father. So that element matters to me very much. It's big to me. It's bigger than rugby by a long shot.
Yeah.
The rugby doesn't even come close to what that means to me. But the foundation of that is my spiritual life, my walk with Christ. I grew up in a Christian home, but only really took the gospel for myself in my first and second year. There was a guy called Corey Thompson, an American guy who worked for a ministry called Campus Outreach, and he always used to just come knock on my door at Res, want to spend time, drink coffee, just informally, and then sometimes he'd invite us to his house. And the way I saw him interact with his wife, I remember going back to the guys at Res and I said, boys, I don't know, I've seen many things in life, but the way this woman respects this man and this man loves this woman, and it just feels like this cycle of love and respect that's just, it's not perfect, but it's beautiful, it looks right. And I'm saying, if the kingdom of God can offer me that, I want that. Like, sign me up. I absolutely want that. And I think that was the beginning part. And I think, Courtnall, part of that was I imagined then my Christian life would be this perfect life of doing good, God blessing, and it's always going to be perfect. And then you remember when I coached in 2018, 2019, when I was falsely accused in Australia of indecent assault against that lady in the hotel. Like, I think that's when my Christian life really became real. It's like I learned this thing about the sovereignty of God. So the sovereignty of God is the belief that everything that happens to you comes from the Lord, even if it's not good stuff. So God doesn't sin, but for him to be God, he has to approve everything that happens to you. So the false accusation was something that he had to put his fingerprint on and say, you have to go through that journey. So that just flipped my whole life around into like really strong Christian faith. So I'll say this verse to you. If you know the story of Job, it's Job is sitting there doing his thing, and the enemy comes to report into God, and God says, where have you been? And he's like, no, I've been roaming around. And God says this, have you seen my servant Job? The enemy says, oh yeah, he loves you because you give him anything. Then God says, go to him and take whatever you want to him, just don't take his life. I'm like, you just sold your bra down the river. You just did it. God just did that thing. And he endures everything. Then in Job 40:11, just two more verses, and I'm finished preaching. Two more verses.
No,
Job,
I love it.
Job
We
42:11
learn
says
it.
something around. It's paraphrased something like this. And then his brothers and sisters came to comfort him because of all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. Put that in your pipe and smoke that. That the Lord had brought upon him. Similarly, Joseph, after his brothers have sold him, after he went to jail and gave a vision and said, guys, please remember you out of jail. They forgot about him. Then Potiphar's wife falsely accused him of sexual assault, and then he got put into jail. After all of that, and his brothers come back to him and say, Joseph, we're so sorry. Please forgive us. He says this to them in Genesis 50:20. What you guys meant for evil, God meant for good. Many people read that quote and they want to read this. What you meant for evil, God used for good. No, 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 no. That is a small God. Because that means they were doing something and God woke up and said, oh no, what were they doing? Let me try to fix this thing. It's not that. It says what they were meaning for evil, he purposed it and allowed it to happen because he was meaning it for good. Because if that doesn't happen, Israelite doesn't get saved from the famine. From that, David is not born. From that, Jesus can't be born. So he was meaning all of this for Joseph to go through so he can actually build his kingdom and salvation through that. So like I'm mad on the sovereignty of God. That's what I'm telling you about what's going on at the Sharks. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, my God is sovereign. Like whatever's going to happen, whatever somebody out there is meaning for not a good purpose, he's going to take. And he not just going to take and use it, he means it for my good. So, Courtnall, that's probably where my identity lies massively in that foundation.
Sure, that's powerful. I remember, as you were talking now, I remember us having the conversation about God's sovereignty. One day, I don't know if you remember, we were walking on the field after a training session. And I asked you, Coach, how you doing and everything. And then you explained, like, listen, I'm digging into the sovereignty of God, and I've just been like, this is what can I share with you? And then you started talking, and I mean, this is how many years ago, you know? And so it's amazing for me to see. That's why I'm saying always, like, when we have these, and especially because I have the personal relationship, I would love people, and it's part of the reason why I do this, and you know, because I don't have to do a podcast, you know, like I love this because I've had so many conversations and I've met so many amazing people. I want other people to get to know this, you know. I want other people to hear these stories, and that's just me saying why I'm doing this. But yeah, coach, defense coach, you know, it's a very specialized role, obviously. You know, it's a big thing. I've heard people say defense wins championships, you know, like defense is where teams like that. That's the main thing. You know, what does it mean to you? You know, and then why defense? Why not attack?
Yeah.
Why not technical? Why not, you know, analyst? Why defense coach? Is that something that God spoke to you about, or is it the floor is yours?
No, thanks. And so, by the way, I just love the motive behind what you're trying to do. Because I'm realizing this, Courtnall, more and more that I work in rugby and also work with my consulting company is that words matter. What you say to people, what you say over people, what people hear matters. I mean, if we believe in God, God spoke the word into being. You know, so words matter. So I love the fact that you create a space for us to speak, because you don't know who's going to listen to this and what they're going through and how that can heal and help and encourage them, right? So keep at it, man. Keep sharing your stories. So yeah, so why defense is actually funny when one of my coaches who coached me at school, Paul Anthony, and a guy called Jeremy Haskins, when I tell them about this, they like, what are you doing on that side of the ball? Because at school, like, we threw the ball around. And like you don't understand, Courtney. Like, we absolutely threw the ball around,
I
and
know
that's what I've loved.
you like a little flair. You like the stuff. I know.
Hundreds. So what happened was I got to the Lions. So I had studied a marketing degree, played at the Bulls, got a marketing degree, worked for the Bulls for a year in marketing, for then Vodacom for 2 years in marketing. So I was sitting there like enjoying my work but not fulfilled, Courtney. Like I can do this, but this doesn't feel like what I'm called to. It doesn't feel like a calling. Then Nico Serfontein, I think you'll know him as well. He might have coached at the Bulls, he'd have been involved.
Yes.
He was then the head of high performance at the Lions
He was
under
Vodacom
John Mitchell.
Cups. Vodacom
Yes, he
Cups.
coached Vodacom Cup as well, 100%. An unbelievable human being. If you want to get somebody about systems and building stuff, he's unbelievable at that stuff. So he phones me and he says, listen, I've got a job for you as the team manager with the Lions under 19s. I'm like, listen, yeah, as long as it's got to do with sport, I've always known that's my calling. I'll take it. I mean, I left a job with two times bonuses per year, with full-time employment, with medical aid, bonuses, all that stuff, to go take on a 2-year contract with no guarantees. But I'm like, I'm
Sure.
doing it. I have to take this jump, right? Because it's what I love.
Yeah.
So I get into that space and I realize, Hans Coutier's there, Russell Winters, the forwards coach, Herke Kruger's the attack coach. And I'm like, but nobody here is coaching defense. And the longer I was in the environment, I'm like, I want to coach, man. I want to have more of an influence than what I'm having as a team manager. I'm having an influence serving guys, but I want to have an influence on the field. I went to Mans and I said to Mans, listen, can I do this coaching thing? He's like, well, all I've got available for you is defense coach. I'm like, well, John McFarlane coached me and he could flip and coach defense. He's proper. And when I was at the Bulls, I played 13 and I loved defense. He's like, well, give it a crack. So, Courtnall, I used to watch John Mitchell from that office. Remember where Mustafa's office was? At Joburg Stadium. So I used to watch the sessions that you guys were doing with him. I'd make notes. And then when he'd come up, I'd just ask him, listen, what was this drill here? What is this drill about? And then slowly but surely, I started to work this thing out. And Nico Serfontein gave me one of the best advices for a young coach I'll ever get. And I also give to people, said, coach at as many places as you can until you discover what's your way. So, I mean, I remember coaching JP under 14s, Cares under 14s, Wits, Varsity Cup or Varsity Shield. At a stage I was coaching at 5 teams because all that gave me, Courtnall, was these spaces to grow a brand of defense. And it's no pressure spaces, because if the Parktown under 14 team loses, nobody's really watching, but I'm getting spaces to grow. If the Wits Varsity Shield team is winning or losing, nobody sees that, but I'm able to grow and learn and figure out what is Joey's way of seeing this thing. So why defense is that it was the opportunity. And why do I do it still? I love that I can call men to the best version of themselves or challenge them to fight for something through defense. You know, like you can actually just say, there's a lot there. There's a lot of emotive stuff. Yes, there's detail, but there's a lot of emotive stuff that you can get out of people and also help build team culture through defense as well.
Yeah. And then, Coach, like obviously defense for me, the way I understand defense is obviously a lot of connection, working together, but also trust. You know, like, because I mean, you've got a system that you have to convey that message and bring that strategy across for people to understand. But then also there needs to be trust. You know, so how do you build that? How do you create that environment?
Yeah, that's good, man. And one of the things I discovered recently, Courtnall, was trust being a function of competence and character. So if you say I trust you, I trust you to be on the show. Why? I trust that when I'm going to come here, it's going to be a high quality interview. I know you're prepared. I know. So I trust your competence that you're going to do this well. But then I also trust your character, that when you said you're going to be at 10 o'clock, you'll be at 10 o'clock. And if you weren't going to make it, you're probably going to text me and say, Coach, I'm going to be 15 minutes late, whatever. So because those two things exist, I can trust you. So similarly with defense stuff is that I've got to be competent as a coach. So the player must look and say, what this guy is telling me, the research he's telling me, is actually what I'm going to get on a Saturday. So he's got to have that trust in me. And then I've got to have a trust to say, well, when this body, if we build a system that can get a body in front of a body, can this body execute what it needs to execute? That's the thing. That's the competence part. Then the character part comes into, well, I like to call it honest players. On a rugby field, there's a way to fold around the corner or bounce out as a back to get you in front of a tackle, and one to get you on a side of a tackle and say, I tried. So that's the other part where then we learn to trust each other's character. So that's the play on the field. But I also think where I as a coach need to keep growing the character part of trust is that when I'm reviewing with people, you can be brutally honest, fair but honest. So not always personal, but fair but honest, So I think that's where players can learn whether they can trust you as well, that you sent us into the mission, you said this is the standard, irrespective of who the person is. If they don't reach the standard and you address them, then I think they get to trust you as a coach. But if you don't address because this guy is a Springbok or this guy's played at the Union for so long, then I think it's easy to lose that trust. So I think that's how I would frame that trust part.
Yeah, just interesting on that, like, a lot of, and I'm one of the players, you know me, I love honesty, straight, boom, op je man af, because I can take that and I can navigate that conversation, I can have that conversation. And I spoke to someone about this and they're like, no, you don't understand. Players don't want to hear the truth. They can't deal with the truth because everyone's got this little view of themselves of I'm this amazing, I'm so good, I'm this. They don't want to hear anything bad about themselves, you know, like, but yeah, that's like, I don't know how you feel about that, but you know, I see that especially now with the younger generation coming in. I see a lot of players that have been, they're the next big thing, you know, and they're the superstar in school. But what they don't understand is when you step into the, you know, a professional environment or into a senior setup, you literally start at ground zero again. So I don't care where you come from, how good of a superstar you were in school, there's still so much to learn. You haven't experienced the pace, the power, you know, of senior rugby at URC or international level, you know, so, you know, being humble and understanding that, you know, you're going to have to take some of those honest conversations, especially very early on in your career. But if you can deal with that, it'll make you such a great player going forward, you know. And I think that's just something that because I came with such a big deficit as a player, when I came in, I didn't have the professional level of coaching. I never made Craven week. I never had any of that exposure to those levels of games even. So that when I stepped into the Bulls, and like you were saying now with the system that is so well waxed and, you know, the coaching that was so great, especially for younger kids at that time when I went there, you know, I could just take in, learn, fight. You know, and that's why I developed that kind of personality where I can have the conversation and understand that I want brutal honesty because it will make me better.
Yeah. No, and you know what? I love this because you spoke earlier about recipe. If the cake we're trying to build here is growth, then because what you're explaining to me, I'm hearing you speak about I'm willing to learn, I want to hear because I didn't get this, so I've got to catch up. The only way I can catch up is to grow. And I think if that is the motive of the whole review process is to have us grow, then the receiver of the message and the sender of the message, if that's the heart's desire, is for us to grow, then we'll be in a good space. It's never fun to get tough feedback. Like we all know that. Like if I go home and my wife tells me, "Listen, I felt like we're not spending enough time together. Like you're ignoring our weekly dates." It's not lacquer to hear, but once I've heard it and I know that she's telling me this because she values our marriage and she wants to keep me accountable to the standard that I set, I can take it. It's not lacquer. I promise you, in the moment, it's not lacquer. I want to feel like I'm getting it right. But the fact that she does that, if I receive it right, and I think it's similar with that, is that if I as the coach can be giving that message of honesty with a desire for this person to get better, not to break them down, but to challenge them to get better, and they also receive it as it's not personal attack on me. It is me. He's showing me and he's saying my name, but it's not a personal attack. It's an accountability thing that I can get better. Then I think you've got this nice growth motive to having this feedback.
That's awesome. You touched on something now, and you said, you know, with you know, not spending enough time with your wife, or you know, if she had to say something like that, you know, it would feel a little bit. From what I've learned, and obviously now I'm doing my coaching levels, and I'm thinking, I'm like I told you the last time, I'm feeling a little inclination into maybe potentially getting involved in some form of capacity. I don't know what exactly that picture is going to look like because I have other things that I want to do as well. I don't know if you can, I don't know, you'll probably be able to tell me whether you can be owning businesses and building businesses and coaching full time. You know, I feel like there's a little bit of I have to figure that out. You know, but, you know, on that, you know, top level coaching has a lot of demand. I mean, you have to review games, you have to prepare for sessions, you have to coach players individually and in a team setup. So when you go off the field, you have to work with individuals as well. Then you guys have review meetings, you have prep meetings, you have all that stuff, you know, like how do you manage your schedule? You still have a business outside as well, you know, how do you manage your schedule, family, downtime, you know, time for hobbies and fun? How do you manage that?
I'll say two things, Courtnall. On your first part about what you said about can you build businesses and coach full time, I think one of the best things you can do for yourself as a coach is have a income stream away from relying on rugby to be your only income stream. I think you'll coach your best then because you'll go into the environment almost like more authentically yourself, and you won't be so influenced by wins and losses, especially losses, because you know that your security is outside of the game. I think if I could advise anybody who's got the option is please just make sure financially you don't need rugby's money to survive. I think that'll be the one thing. When you spoke now about how do we find the balance, one of the best things that somebody taught me was find your workflow. Figure out what does your Monday to Friday look like and replicate that as much as possible. So one of the things that I've discovered with my workflow is having a young family is when I get home, I do absolutely no work. So as soon as I get home, it's family time, it's time for Zinzi. So what that means is obviously other people are working in that time. So what that means for me is during the week, I wake up at 4 in the morning. So between 4 and 6, that is my time to catch up the 2 hours that somebody else might have done after training. So that's part of my workflow. Then I'm super clear on a Monday, all things being equal, I'm likely to review these things. On a Tuesday, likely to prep that unit session. On a Wednesday off day, this is what I do. So I've got a bit of a flow that helps me make sure that I've got certain things stuck in place. And similar to that professor who showed a class about how to fit everything in. They first put in the big rocks, then the little rocks, then the sand. I then try to put landmarks on the big thing. So the big thing is my date with Zinzi. That's got to be in. The review of the game on a Sunday evening, because I try to have my whole Sabbath on a Sunday evening. That has to begin. The preview process on a Tuesday afternoon after training. That's going. So when my big rocks are in, I'm able to fill in other parts because that gives me more capacity. But if I don't first put in the big rocks, then I can find myself running around. And those weeks are irritating because I know I'm not maximizing my time because of my lack of workflow.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Because I'm thinking of how that would look like. Obviously, I'm not in it, but that's why I'm asking the question. And a lot of the questions I'm asking, and I told this to someone, I said, a lot of the questions I'm asking or the conversation that I have is me learning as well. It's, so I know that I want to know this, so maybe it is there for someone as well. But, Coach, like you talked about people having something outside of coaching, like you were a player as well, and, you work with a lot of athletes. What would you say, about planning for life beyond sport to actual professional players?
Yeah, yes, Courtnall, I might take a while on this one because it's something I'm very passionate about. And why I'm passionate about it is that, like I said about Ashley Everett earlier on, he made it clear to me that I have to have both worlds. Like you've got to be playing with the Bulls, you've got to be studying. And then I've normalized that and I've seen the benefits of it. And why I'm passionate about this is there are too many unspoken stories of guys who have struggled to transition into their lives after rugby. And it's not a retirement. I don't like the word retirement because retirement, it's like something's wrong, but a transition means I'm transitioning from my first career, which was playing rugby, into my second career, which has sustained me for the rest of my life. So I think even that as a mind shift is a thing. And then I'd say two things, Courtnall. One is a concern. My concern is players and sportsmen and women from a younger age are being taught this thing as all I've got to do is be good at sport and somebody's going to look after me. So there are 12, 13-year-olds now who they're not thinking necessarily how well they pass at varsity. They think at school, in primary school, they're thinking which high school is going to give me the best bursary with the most clothes. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But the point is these kids now enter life from the age of 13, not so worried about the academics because I'm a bursary boy. So as long as the team is doing well in winter in rugby or in summer in cricket, I'm doing my part. So by the time the guy becomes a professional, signs their first contract as a 19-year-old, they've normalized 5-6 years of as long as I'm playing good rugby, the world is going to look after me. And you and I both know that that is a false reality. It is not true. It is not true. Then you get two types. So even if you do well and you save 10 million from a career and you transition out of it at age 30, God willing, you're still going to live another 50 years. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do identity-wise? Who is Joey Mongalo when he's not a coach? Like, who are you? Like, literally, like, who are you? Are you able to walk in the streets and be comfortable where nobody knows you, nobody's taking a second look at you, nobody's asking you for your signature because you are so secure in who you are as a man outside of the glitz and glam of rugby? That's one part, like to ask yourself, because if I'm the rugby bursary guy, but I'm doing my academics and I'm spending time with other people who worry nothing about rugby at school, I'm learning the thing of rugby is just another thing. It's not the most important thing because the guy who gets an award for winning an Olympiad and I'm friends with him, I get to see that his world matters. The guy who does the science project and I get to his world, I realize, well, listen, rugby is just another thing amongst other things. But if I only do rugby, only do cricket, only do my sport, I start to elevate this thing to beyond what it actually is. It's just another profession. Yes, it matters. Yes, millions of people watch it, but it's just another way. So I think there's a way, Courtnall, of building a culture of more holistic sportsmen and women by showing them interest in other parts and learning for them to learn that they are more than just a sports code. So I think that is big for me. And again, and not just to study, do something outside of the game. Somebody said this to me the other day, is find your purpose. And purpose being, what are your values? What things do you value? What are your interests, things that interest you? And what are your abilities? So if you can think about what are my values, what are my interests, what are my abilities, find something else outside of rugby and pour yourself into that as well, because that's showing you that you are more than just Courtnall, the rugby player. You are also somebody who's got interests and things in another area. And not to labor on this long, I would say the last one is, if you can see how many of recent time, how many sportsmen and women, especially rugby players, have taken their lives as a part of not being able to deal with transitioning. It shows you what the worst case scenario can look like. And all it is that, not all it is, because I can't just take something so small, is there's definitely a sense there of identity. Who am I outside of the game? There's a sense there of purpose. Like, what am I called to beyond rugby? I was called to rugby for a while, but what is my calling after that? And then some of them at the lower level, but it matters just as much, is a financial thing. It's like, I've learned to live this massive lifestyle because I'm getting paid salaries that CEOs and chief executives and CFOs get paid. But when I finish playing, my reality is I'm likely to only earn, if I was earning 10 Rand, I'm likely to earn 4 Rand, 5 Rand, or 3 Rand if I'm lucky. Have I learned how to teach myself and my family members that our standard of living is going to be more 3 Rand than what is a 10 Rand? So if there's a financial element, if there's a purpose element, and there can be an identity element, I think those three things are what I would say, encouraging people to invest themselves into those three areas.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, I've had this conversation so many times, and it's nice for me to hear so many different ways of it, but it always comes back to purpose, and identity, and finding what your passions and your values are outside of sport. I mean, I had this conversation with Warren, who unfortunately passed on recently as well. I don't know if you've seen Warren Abrams,
Sure.
and I had this conversation, and he said something similar as well. He said, just when I speak to the guys, I make sure that they understand that you've got to find something outside of it. You're not just a rugby player, and I'm grateful that I learned that at a young age, for me to be able to understand that. Because I think when I got injured, when I did my ACL, was when I had my first light bulb moment where I was like, okay,
Sure.
I've got 9 months left on my contract. I just got the news that I might be out for 3, 6, or 9 months. I went to Doc Rob and I said, Doc, I cannot be out for that long. I only have 9 months left on my contract. What am I going to do? And he's like, he tried to give me confidence, and he's like, Courtnall, if you're still worried about who's going to sign you or whether you'll have a job after all, what you've done. I'm like, but I understand, right?
Sure.
Like, it changes very quickly. Rugby can change in 3 months, in 2 months, in 6 months. 1 season is a lot of time, and that's when I started realizing, okay, well, this rugby thing, it's great, and I've been very fortunate to be in the game for 16 years, but at that time when I was 27, that was like 8 years ago, I sat there and I was like, okay, I need to figure myself out outside of, because I was just a rugby mouth, and I've had to figure myself out and understand that, okay, I'm great at this sport and I love this thing, but I gotta figure out who I am outside of that. And I think it helps a lot. Having the conversations, I think, is a big start, and it's a big positive, because a lot of the times we try not to talk about these things because it's a touchy subject. It's like, for some people, they're like, listen, dude, like, we'll get there when we get there. Like, if we had to have this conversation now with a 21-year-old, they still have 14 years left of the career in their minds. They don't see the challenges or the stuff that's coming, and you've got to understand that. And I think it was with Rowan Combrink that I had this conversation, and he said, you got to understand that out of everyone that plays, it's only about 5% that really have long careers, like massive careers, where there's actually substantial careers, where they've made enough, or maybe 1% or 2% where they've made enough to not have to work another day. He's like, if you go out there on the streets, 20,000 Rand is a lot of money. He's like, and you go ask outside in the streets how many people earn 20,000 Rand a month, you will understand the value of money. He's like, people don't do this because we've normalized this whole thing of
Sure.
what we are doing in sport and how quickly that curve can go up. So it's something that I'm passionate about, and I've said this before, and it's still my heart. I hope and I pray to be involved in some shape or form of doing something where we can create a platform or an opportunity, for us to have more of these conversations, but also have a bit of action behind it, and do something in this space. So yeah, that's why
Well,
I'm so passionate about it. Well, hopefully, yeah. Well,
no, well, I might. I've got something for you. I've got something for you.
okay,
So,
okay.
I with a friend of mine here in Durban, we doing this thing called the Victory Program, and all it is to help athletes transition from when they're playing to what they're going to do, transition to a second career. So it has a podcast element because somebody would be sharing these stories, like these lived experience of guys. And the victory is an acronym. So we're taking people through, like, it's a little booklet, it's a beautiful booklet that goes through all these chapters. So the V is for vision, like where are you going? What's your vision for the second part of your career? The I is for identity. The C is what community of people have you got around you to take you to this thing. The T is for tenacity, understanding, helping people realize you're going to have to be tough because this is not an easy, it's not an easy, what you call it. So it goes through that whole thing like that. So that's the one element of it. And then in its form, Courtnall, when you said about the action, there's 4 terms, and each term has got this skill set. So the first one is doing psychological assessments. So who is Courtnall, and what are his skills and his giftings that are naturally God given to them? So you know that about yourself. Then after that there's a business skills, we've called it. So how do you get in front of a laptop, open this thing, start your own email, work Word, work Excel, work PowerPoint, work Keynote, so you can actually get to learn to presenting stuff and putting yourself out there. All this knowledge you've got in here, putting it into some kind of form of that nature. Then there's the financial management section, and that is not just how you save money, it's to help people understand what Ruan Combring said. Do you understand that you are now earning this much? Out in the world, most people are earning that much. How are you doing to make sure that you close that gap or you help people? So there's that financial element. And then the last one was again about just the identity. So a whole block on identity to just imagine spending, Courtnall, before you finish, the last 6 months of your career in an environment where people don't know who you are. And you get used to being just another person in the crowd. And I say that respectfully to people who are not involved in this
I
thing.
would love
So
that.
you can, what I mean? So literally, like, walk out and get used to going to bars where nobody speaks about rugby, and you sit, because then all that happens is when you do finally finish, you already exposed yourself to what your world is going to be. So you don't need to be at a bar and people ask you about rugby. You've learned to create a whole new social circle of people who know you away from the game. So there's something going on there. Once it grows, I'll definitely give you a ring to see how you can add value to that space.
Definitely touch me. I would love to be involved in something like that. It's just something I've always been in. Like for me, especially with the younger guy, like youth, like I feel like that's where we need to get them. We're not gonna get the guy when he's 34, 35. We need to get him when he's 18, 19, when he signs his first contract. Set the foundation here already, and then we push through. By the time that light is 27, 28, he's so set. Or
That's
that
power.
girl, they're so set that they don't have to worry. The transition will be seamless. And that's my heart. That's my heart. I want to talk, coach, because obviously you big in leadership, and it's a big part of what you do off the field with your business, with your consultancy as well. And I want to talk about leadership a little bit. Like what is leadership? I wanted to ask: are people born leaders? And then on top of that, the typical examples would be a guy like Sia Kolisi, Vincent Sitsuka, even Etzebeth. You're working with these guys, so are people born leaders, and how do you build leadership in your squad or in a team environment?
Yeah, that's good, man. And I'll say this, Courtnall, I firmly believe that leadership is a skill set. That's how I put it. So if you think about a skill set, let's say if you and I both pick up a cricket bat and start batting, you might have a more natural inclination to it. But if I train hard enough, I can become just as good a batsman as you. Even though you started with a gifting, so your gifting was more than mine to originally start with. So because it's a skill set, some take more naturally to it, for sure. Definitely, you've seen it. Like from school, like you saw guys, you just looked at guys and you thought, well, he's just He gets it. It just happens for
Yeah,
him, right? But
100%.
it doesn't mean that it can't happen for anybody else. So it's a skill set. So now, if it's a skill set, how do you work on it? So, and my goal is this: is there's so much stuff written about leadership out there, so many books, so many podcasts, so many things, but it's still a pandemic in the world. So my job is I'm trying to simplify it to the smallest T. And how I start on leadership, I say this: I say we need resilient leaders. Resilient leaders. Why? Because life is often unfair, and leadership is hard work. So that disqualifies most people because most people want to answer you asking that, but that's not fair, or I can't do anything about this. A leader steps up and says, I know it's unfair. I know it's not equal. I live in that space. I live in those waters. I know that it's hard work. So I live in that water. So I would say it's starting, that's a starting premise. Your skill set is sharpened up by knowing that life is unfair and that this is hard work. That's how you enter. Knock on the door,
Yeah,
kloppie, come in. It's because you understand those two things.
yeah,
Then I'd like to put it into three things, Courtnall, what a leader does. A leader, they manage and maximize themselves, and they mold and mobilize others. So what I mean by that, if I'm starting a leadership journey, anyone, I'm saying start with yourself. Do a SWOT analysis on yourself. What are your strengths that can lead to opportunities for you to be a leader based on your strengths? Then what are your, not weaknesses, because words are powerful, what are your work-ons that if you don't work on them, they'll be a threat to your leadership? So let's say one is I remain impatient with people. Well, I've got to realize that if I don't see that about myself and I don't work on that, I'm not going to raise too many more leaders because people will be like, with Joey, you better get it right. If you don't get it right, he's got no grace for you. That's not going to help me grow as a leader. On the other side, on a strength, it can be, well, you're quite inspirational. Because you're inspirational, every time you get in front of people, lead from a point of inspiring them and then give them the next thing because you naturally inspire people. So that's an example of a SWOT analysis. Because if I
yeah,
know that, I'm able to manage the stuff that needs to be worked on, but then I can also maximize my strengths. But I can only do that once I know that about myself. Then once I've got that going on, Courtnall, then I'm going on to this thing of, okay, how do you then mold and mobilize people? Here's Courtnall in front of you. What does Courtnall need for you to help him see his potential that he can go to the next level? It's Marius van Heerden who looks at Joey and says, you're a soccer player, but actually I think you might be a natural sportsman. So I'm going to give you cricket and rugby. He's busy molding me into something. And then when he does that, the mobilizing comes from when he decides you're so good that I'm actually going to make you the cricket captain of this team of a sport you couldn't play years later. Now he's mobilized me to play provincial cricket and then after provincial cricket to get a bursary into Pretoria Boys High School. So that's an example for me as one beautiful thing of a leader who knows his skill set. He knows he's a rugby man or a sportsman. He then uses those strengths of his to mold and mobilize me, and then I get to do that in the world, and then I've got to then manage myself, maximize myself, and mold and mobilize others, and that thing swirls and takes over the world.
sure. Yesterday, I feel like there's more. But I feel like there's more. But it's yeah. Like I fully understand what you're saying, and I do believe that that's exactly what it is. You know, I had similarly also a coach, and like you said, now you had Marius van Heerden. You said
Mm, mm,
you
mm.
had him. I had a few coaches as well. It was in primary school. It was Mr. Linde, and then I had my coach Jan Loopsje. I had Jannie Muller, and then I had Bertie Gerber as well. You know, those guys were guys in my early years, just primary school, later years in high school, and Meneer Benadi as well. And then also, you know, my first year out of school when I was playing club, I got to the club and the coach was like, "Listen, you're not supposed to be here." And I'm like, "What is
Sure,
this guy saying?" He told me, "It's like, listen,
sure.
you should be playing at a union or something. You shouldn't be playing
Mm,
club rugby." Now imagine me going for
yeah,
trials every year. I go for trials every single year. I say this is going to be
yeah.
my year, and I don't make Craven Week. I have to watch these kids on TV, and you
Mm,
get to a place and this guy tells you you're not supposed to be here. The level of
mm,
confidence I found in myself, knowing that this is what this guy is giving me, made me work
mm,
harder. It made me come
mm,
to training more inspired, more amped. You know, like made me going to games feeling and thinking that I'm that good, and then actually
mm,
putting the performances out there because you know whatever man thinketh so it will be. So it's like he
mm,
gave me that empowerment for me to do that. And then when the opportunity came up, he was one of the biggest, parts of that opportunity coming up for me to first of all go play that sevens tournament that was broadcasted on TV, and then me getting the opportunity to go to the Bulls. So it's like, we all, and that's, like you said, that was a leader in my life that did that for me. All the stuff that you just spoke about, he did all of that for me because he saw the potential and he was like, listen, I want to take you to the next level and I want to do that for you. And it's been, I told him the other day, I said, listen, I probably don't say thank you enough, but I just want to say thank you. I sent him a long message. I said, listen, I just want to say thank you for what you did. I don't think you understand what you did, but I needed that at that time in my life, and everything that worked from there got me to be able to live my dream until this day, and pull the green and gold over my head because of someone, that at the right time said the right stuff and mobilized and helped me get there, so yeah, it's just that's the possibility of what can happen when we have great, strong leaders that are able to understand who they are and what they can do for the next person. So yeah.
No, I fully agree, and I think go for it.
No, I'm listening to you.
No, I was just thinking, like, if you look at any great institution or a team that's done well for a period of time, both the rise and fall, you can assign a leader or leadership to it. Like, it's like if you look at the Lions organization you're speaking of, and you think about the man in charge of that thing, what he's done, as soon as he left, you could almost feel there was a bit of a plateau, holding, and it's just not the same place. And it's not anybody's fault. It's just the man who's at the helm carries that strength. If you can think about where the Springboks are now as a group, like if you took Rassie out of that, and all respect to everybody else, they'll also admit it, they'll probably be 20% less the team that they are because just of the man's leadership. If you take the Bulls when they were thriving under Heineke Meyer, everything that rises and falls, there's just a figure there that 100%. And some of the best ones have leadership teams of people, but you can always assign somebody to it. Always, every single time.
100%. That actually takes me to the question I just wanted to ask you now, is what is the biggest myth you see among young athletes and coaches about success, and what is the truth about success?
Yeah, that's good, man. Like I'm actually going to give you an analogy on this one. I think it's actually quite simple. I think we especially this generation, I mean, we are part of it because we grew up in the same. We very much instant success. Like success happens quickly. Like if you look at any Instagram or whatever, it's almost like I had nothing yesterday, I did some special magic move, and now I've got everything. Like it's that way. And if you think through life and you listen to people's full stories, you'll see that it's the longevity, the guys who stay the course for the longest time. Because when you stay the course, it's gonna ask you questions. Do you really believe in what you believe in for success? And you've got to answer the question yes or no. And then if it falters, are you going to stick to it? Or are you going to be able to evolve? So it's not success is not a moment, it's a journey. And how the analogy I like, because I love cricket so much, if you think about cricket, when you bat in a test match, you come to the middle, you ask for middle. The wicket keeper and the slips behind you are chirping you. The crowd doesn't really believe in you, and you scratch around and you play and miss a little bit. Then if you survive a session, you are like 20 not out. There's 2 or 3 less people chirping you. The crowd is starting to clap for your stuff. Your partner on the other side, you're feeling confident. Then you survive 2 sessions. Then suddenly it's only the wicket keeper, the slips are quiet, the field is a bit further out because now you're on 40, 50 not out, the crowd's appreciating you. Then even in that, you might go through a patch where there's a new ball. Now you're on 60 not out, but there's a new ball. Now the slips are back. They challenge you, they're chirping you again. Well, you've got to survive the new ball. You finish the day. So it wasn't 1-6 that got them to stop chirping you. It was the fact that you kept batting. So I love to put that analogy in my head of, Joey, just keep batting. The longer you are in, the longer, even if you're scratching and it feels like you don't know how to get a run, as long as you are still batting, you've got a chance of reaching success. Where I feel like here, we pull out too quickly. If I have a tough session, I try to hit myself out of it, I get caught on the boundary, I'm out. And then I'll try again. But the consistency of keeping batting, just, yeah, it paves success for sure.
don't want to add too much to that, but
Mm-mm,
I, I
please.
think I think you gotta go through stuff for you to be able to have that tenacity. Like for you to
Mm,
have that mindset and that character, you need to have gone through stuff before to understand what it takes. Because I don't think you just learn that by. And I listened to a thing about Miles Monroe. I used to love
yes.
his preaching. I listened to one of his videos the other night. I just felt like I just listening to the word, and I laid in bed and I put my AirPod in, and I just meditated on listening to his voice.
Hmm.
And he was talking about obviously seeking God first, but then he was talking about character and how character is built by
Hmm.
going through stuff and
Sure.
dealing with stuff. So when you say keep betting, it's because you've been betting. Like it's not just like you didn't just get
Mm,
there and it's just all of a sudden you had this mindset of keep betting. Like you've been betting. So it's just to add on that. Like that's the same way I believe about success. Like and success is different for different people. It's like what do
yep.
what are you connected to? So some success is a certain amount in the bank. For other people, it's
Mm,
legacy. For someone else, it's
mm,
like it's different things for different people. But the common denominator, the thing that remains, is the fact that you have to go through time. It takes time to
yeah.
build that. I always tell my wife, it's so the thing about life and the thing about building stuff and wanting things is it takes time, and that's the tough
It
part.
does. It
It
does.
takes time, but eventually
Sure.
we do get there. Like we were kids and we prayed
Yeah.
for things that we have now, but it took time for us to get here. Because we
Mm,
get so used to that, we prayed for something and God gave it to us. We discount the time that it took for us to get there.
sure.
So we're thinking it took me 10 years to live my dream. I was 8 years old and I said
Mm,
I want to play rugby in New Zealand. I was
sure.
touring New Zealand at 22 years old. So it took 14
Sure.
years for that prayer to become
Sure.
a reality. But because it happened, I'm like, God, the next thing has to happen tomorrow. The next thing has to happen the
Mm,
next day.
yes.
So just to add on to that, like that's how I believe, like that's just my 5 cents worth. That's why I said I don't want to add too much, but that's just my 5 cents
No.
towards that.
No, and that's beautiful. I love that. I'm going to take that away with me for sure. Is because if you can think journey, you think time. It's very much linked. It's not a yesterday, quick today thing. So I love that. And what I want to add to that other side of that time thing is that true success should outlast you. So if we're speaking about leadership, if I'm, let's say I'm leading whatever, a team. If I'm leading a team, when I leave that team, part of what's been placed there should help the next coach succeed just as much. No, not wanting to look back and say, "Oh, Joey's left, so now they've lost." Then I've got to ask question: did what I put in place was that solid enough to help the next person win? So if you think about time, is that it's not only the time, how long, the 14 years it takes me to get there. Is do I then leave and somebody else is able to breed success based on what I've just done? Like I mean, if you think about Sir Alex Ferguson with Man United, did so many things, won so many things, but literally it's 2 decades later, and now I think it's the first time in how long they've won 3 games on the trot. Like it's
Yeah,
just it's like a pandemic, since then. So
yeah.
I think if he
And that
could,
was
I don't
normal
want to speak
back then.
exactly, exactly. No, that was like, what do you mean? That's what we do. We
Yeah, that's
win.
like
Man
normal,
United get onto the field,
100%.
they win. It's about how much. Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
No, 100%. Coach, I've got a few more questions. I want to respect your time.
Okay,
We've gone over what I expected, but I've got a few rapid fire questions. I think I'll just choose 3 of them, and then,
okay.
we'll close off. I just want to respect your time as well. I know you're a busy man. So, one of the questions is one thing you cannot live without.
I would say it sounds funny, but worship music. Like almost even more than the word, because like it feels like that's my connection. So especially when I'm going through a difficult time, sometimes it feels like I can't pray, but if I'm worshiping, it feels like it's a way to, and I think the enemy hates it. So that's why I like it. So I think
Yeah,
I would say worship music is quite central to me. Yeah.
sure. Powerful. I also love worshiping. The other one is one habit you refuse to compromise.
What habit I refuse to
One
compromise?
habit that you refuse to
Okay.
compromise.
Um, I think it's spending time with my wife. Like I just feel like it's so central. Like in terms of everything outside of spiritual life in the physical world, that's probably the most not probably it is the most central relationship that I have. So it's quite yeah. So I need to make sure that's healthy in order for me to get other things done. And it doesn't come naturally for me because that's not my love language. Her love language is
Yeah,
time. My
it's time. Yeah.
love language service. Yeah. So
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. And then just before we have the last one, what legacy would you like to leave as a coach?
Somebody always said to me, the guys they won't always remember what they won or what happened in the things, but they always remember how you made them feel. So I'd love to leave a legacy of that guy challenged me to be a better man. He used rugby to challenge me to be a better man. So like even when he was challenging my work ethic, he was challenging not just my work ethic on the field, but how am I going to work away from the field? And he was challenging me to fight for something and to respond to something. So it's to say it was more than just rugby. He challenged me with things that I would need to make a success of my life outside of rugby as well.
Awesome, awesome. And then just in closing, what message would you like to leave for anyone watching this episode?
I'd like to say that adversity is a privilege. And why I say that is that if we live lives that avoid adversity, it doesn't really make sense because it will come. Because the fact that there's sin in this world, whether it's my sin or somebody else's sin, adversity will come. And what I found for me is that adversity helps me sit down and sift through what really matters in life. It's like a time just to draw back to the cross, back to Jesus, back to the things that really matter. Because the opposite is also true, is that when I'm doing well, successfully, I'm easy to covet those times that they never go away, that I always wanted to go well. And then I can easily get caught up in tertiary and secondary things and make those primary instead of staying on the primary things. So I'd actually say that's why it's a privilege, because it actually pulls you back to who you are meant to be, and also pulls you back to the source that you should be getting all your sustenance from. So when it's going well, it's easy for me to be the sustenance, my friends to be the sustenance, my wife to be the sustenance. But when it's tough, I've got to go back to the real source. Like, listen, plug me into that place because I need to go there. So I would say adversity is a privilege. It doesn't feel like it. It's not lacquer, but it is a privilege.
That's basically the quote that I love by it, just paraphrased in a different way, where I say no matter how life hits you or how well you're doing in life, don't forget to always look up. So understanding where my strength comes from. So it's basically, I've taken it from Psalm 121, where it says, I lift my eyes to the mountain, where does my help come from? My help comes from the maker of heaven and earth.
Sure.
So it's basically that. So I love that message, and I'm going to leave it right there with that. Coach, I just, I want to say thank you. And I don't take this lightly. You've, opened up and availed yourself and given me time, and everyone that will be watching this, you've given time and you shared a little bit about you, and a lot of deep things as well. So I want to say thank you. I don't take it for granted. I don't take it light. Just like I told you earlier, I had this conversation with a young man. He was 43, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And this was a few months ago. The guy's not around anymore, and that's life. We just never know where and when. So whatever opportunity we have to leave an impact and have influence, and share a little bit about the knowledge and the stuff that God has gifted us with, it's a massive privilege. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for allowing this and for creating this opportunity. I feel like every episode for me is a moment, because I get to live and share with you and be able to facilitate your story being told. So it's a massive privilege for me. I never thought that I would be doing stuff like this. I love to chat, but I never thought that I would do this. I was the guy whose paper would be shaking in his hand when you're doing prepared speech in the class and asking the teacher, can I come back in break time to come and do it when no one's in the class? That was me. That's the same guy that's sitting here. So, I really don't take this for granted. I just want to say thank you. I can't say thank you enough. I really appreciate you.
Nah, man, absolute pleasure. And a couple of things from my side. One is super proud of you. I just think your story is so inspirational, and that you keep going. I'm just watching you even at the Stormers. You've gone there. You haven't played much, but when I look at you from the outside, it looks like you're a man who keeps going, keeps adding value. You haven't changed. So
keep betting.
Keep betting. That's pretty special. And then the second one, I want to thank you for reminding me. Courtnall, I'm busy actually having part of my story told in a book, and it's not because I think I'm famous or whatever. It's that I realized at a stage that my father died at 36 or 38. Like at the time when I was growing up, I thought to myself, no, he's lived. But at 40 now, I'm thinking, flip, man, that guy probably had a story to tell that he just never got a chance to tell. So I'm like, I want to get my story out there, not for me, not for fame, not for anything, because I know that there's somebody in the world who's going to benefit from this thing, you know. So thank you again for reminding me and giving me this platform for me to share this, to have influence. So somebody's life will listen to this thing or read that book and never be the same again, and pull them, whatever, closer to Christ, or refresh their relationship with Christ, whatever it is. If we can have that influence on people's lives, let's continue to do that. So thank you for the platform.
Awesome. Guys, if you enjoyed that episode, please hit the like button, subscribe, share this with a friend, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. God bless you.